You know those games where when you watch them, you say, wow, that really left a mark on me. I just learned something very, very, very logical that I don't pay attention to in my own games? Today, I'm going to show you a game between two very strong grandmasters, with white Topalov and with black, I don't quite remember who it was. I'll leave it for you right down there in the description. And look, he's today's protagonist. Live show stuff, folks. But you're going to see how to harshly punish a lack of development. It's a very fast game, you'll see. However, it's full of ideas. So come on, let's go, get ready. And we start with this game where the player with the black pieces started with a French defense. You know how it is, right? You can choose whatever defense or opening you want, and if you study it well, you'll achieve great success. It's true that some might have more success than others, but really, they're all super effective. Logically, whenever we don't occupy the center with our pawns, the best response from our opponent, logically, is to occupy it with both the king's pawn and the queen's pawn. You're gonna see that to the none. I brought this beautiful chess set, the one from the Queen's Gambit series, because the game really deserves it. As always, for the chess sets from Chess is Art, you have the discount code in the description. Chess Teacher, and they'll give you a 15% discount just for you, not only on this one, but on all of them. Very well, French defense theory, well, plan this d5, right? Momentarily, we haven't occupied the center with the king's pawn in order to occupy it directly with the queen's pawn. There are many options here for the white pieces. There's the advance variation, there's the exchange variation, and there are the two knight variations, right? The tirage variation with knight to d2, or a very classic one that was played in the game with knight to c3. It's a very interesting variation because there are many French defense players who don't know it, especially when they aren't at a high level and they play c5. Friends, this is a mistake. This is a direct mistake that loses a pawn, because simply after pawn takes pawn, after d takes c5, as you can see, this pawn is being attacked by 1, 2, and 3 pieces, and only defended by 2. Therefore, by recapturing this pawn, white would already win the d5 pawn with this move, e takes d5. That's understood, right? So it's a mistake in the variation of knight c3 to play c5. What should be played? Well, there are several. My favorite, and the one that was played in the game, is this knight f6. Many of you might be afraid of this move because of the e5 advance, but honestly, this shouldn't scare you at all, because the knight simply redirects to d7, and just like that, we've solved a typical problem of the French defense, which is the development of the king side. Normally, here, we have a very hard time developing the king side since both pieces, the knight and the bishop, fight for the same square, and it's not easy to develop them. At this moment, by placing the knight on d7, we will be able to develop the bishop. And not only that, but the knight from d7 supports the typical break on c5, which, if they want to play correctly, they must defend with the pawn. And now the knight on c3 bothers them. Therefore, they should also move that knight away and after c5 play c3. Do you understand? And we would have these two knights already pointing very well towards the center. These would be more or less the plans for both pieces, right? In this case, white didn't advance the pawn with good judgment, but instead played a slightly better move, which is the following: bishop g5. The idea is clear. Now something more is definitely being threatened, right? This knight is being pinned, a relative pin, not an absolute pin, because the king isn't behind it, as you've well studied in Flavia's classes inside the academy. A relative pin. That means that if we want to, we can move the knight, but it's not a good idea. How can we respond here? We have several options, right? If they're threatening this advance, well, the first and most logical one would be to eliminate the pawn, and that way we're sure they won't advance. Another option, without a doubt, would be to block with the bishop, right? A typical move to get rid of the pin. However, here, without a doubt, the best one is pawn takes pawn. We take this central pawn, and now, after knight takes, evidently they are threatening to double our pawns. Why? Because with both bishop takes knight and knight takes knight would force us to recapture with the pawn, because with the queen, we would be losing too much material, right? That's why here, no matter what, now it's necessary to play this bishop to e7. Does that make sense? If you're not understanding something, it's simple, right? You can rewind the video a little bit. And that's the good thing about having it recorded, right? That, I'll explain it to you as many times as necessary. Very well. So here, what white does is exchange this bishop for the knight. Well, it's a totally possible move since this knight occupies strong squares in the center, and now it was indeed threatening knight takes knight, right? And now, after bishop takes, you can either continue with knight takes f6, check, to which we would continue with queen takes queen takes knight, or any other move can be played. We have to be careful if we are playing white, because if we don't make this knight takes bishop move, we must keep in mind that this pawn is being threatened by two pieces, both the queen and the bishop. And that is why white plays this c3, a totally correct move. They are solidifying the center, right? And besides, they are undoubtedly defending this pawn. At some point, if we want to, right? If we are white, we can capture this bishop. Since I don't think black will waste the tempo moving it back, they would even prefer to give up the bishop pair to activate the queen. Very well, the critical moment of the game begins. Up to this point, I think we've done a really good job of understanding the plans for this defense, right? Most likely, some of you might already be familiar with all of this if you played a French defense with black, or even if you face it with white. But if not, it's all knowledge we're gaining, right? These kinds of extra lessons we take away, aside from the main topic of each class, right? At this moment, do you remember what I told you, right? What happens if we don't develop our minor pieces coherently, quickly, and effectively? Well, it can be punished immediately. In this case, a good move for the white pieces would be, for example, knight f3, right? Developing the knight. Well, forgive me. The black pieces go first, yes, so this knight d7th was played. I don't want to skip any moves. Another good move could be, well, I don't know, developing this bishop, right? But here, Topalov decided to play this queen c2. It makes perfect sense. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes, the better players we are, the less attention we pay to the basic concepts of chess. And chess is very intuitive. For finding the right moves. Well, afterwards, it's as complicated as can be, right? But really, if we follow the logic, we'll usually find those correct candidate moves, aside from, logically, all the difficulty that tactics and long-term strategy entail. Obviously, what should we do when our opponent doesn't follow the fundamental laws of chess? In this case, the rapid development of pieces. Well, here the player with the black pieces understood that perfectly. Notice that even though they are playing with the black pieces and started with a tempo less because white moves first, they already have two pieces developed and are going to castle on the next move. Meanwhile, white only has one piece developed, and if they want to castle, they would have to castle long. So the black pieces understand that since they have a development advantage, they need to take action and open up the center. Yeah, this is a little trick you can use in your own games. Development advantage. Time to attack and look for trouble. Why? Because we have more soldiers than our opponent in the war, and therefore we will come out victorious. And that is why the correct move is this e5. Great move. Right, from here, logically, white must capture this pawn, because if they don't, it's going to be black who captures. And on top of that, they might even win a pawn. It's true that they could defend it, for example with the knight, but here, simply a move like castling and subsequently bringing the rook into this file could be too beneficial for black, and that is why they make this pawn exchange, so as not to lose time. Knight takes, and look at how well placed the pieces are, for black, right? At this moment, they have a super well placed knight. It no longer bothers the bishop, which can be developed, they can castle, right? In other words, black is undoubtedly at an advantage right now. Obviously, at this moment, white wants to castle, but of course, they can't castle queenside because the queen is cutting off the castling line. Therefore, black has everything under control. White's plan is undoubtedly to continue being effective. At this moment, what would they like? For example, to play the bishop to d3, right? To be able to castle, to cut off the line. But what happens? They can't do it because the bishop would be captured by the knight and the queen. And that is why, consistent with their plan, it is very interesting and very fundamental to be consistent with our plans and not keep changing plans. They play f4. It makes perfect sense. At this moment, the knight is being threatened. a knight that was fundamental for defending the d3 square, a square that was fundamental for placing the bishop and subsequently being able to castle long. Very well. The thing is that now this knight can move away right now to the g6 square while attacking the f4th pawn. Logically, white has to defend it with his g3, and now black has all the time in the world to castle. Let's understand the position for a moment, guys. Black has already castled, has 2 pieces developed, and white has not castled. They can't either, because we are still cutting off the d-file, and on top of that, they only have 1 piece developed. Black has the upper hand in the game, but of course, you have to know how to finish this off. And you're going to see what an elegant and quick way for the black pieces to punish, right? This amazing game that deserves a round of applause, because if you've never seen it, it's really worth watching several times. Bishop d3. Friends, don't tell me this bishop d3 doesn't make sense. That was the plan for the BL for the white pieces, right? To be able to castle long and cut off this file for the black queen. Very well. Pay attention to this move, which is very interesting. Queen d5. It's worth pausing for a moment to explain it well. Because, of course, chess teacher, you've been telling me from the beginning that I should develop my pieces quickly, not place the queen in the center, in the opening, because it's very easy to attack, right? Yes, but there are exceptions. In chess, there are always exceptions. In this case, centralizing the queen is correct because it cannot be attacked. There's no way to attack this queen. You see it, right? No piece can go and attack this queen. Logically, they could do it with the pawn, but it wouldn't be a very good idea to weaken themselves even more. First of all, because we could place the queen on a 5, given this check, right? And the queen here will be super well placed. We would be attacking a lot, the black king would be very weak. It's not a move that's worth it. Besides, when the queen is placed on a 5, they won't be able to castle because they'll be touching this a2 point. At this moment, white can't castle because the good placement of the central queen is threatening this a2 point. That is to say, if white castles now, simply queen takes the 2 would have a very big advantage because not only would they win a pawn, but now this king would be left extremely exposed, right? That's why logically here, let me position this correctly, they cannot castle. Now then, look at what white does. A 3? Does it make sense? Yes and no. It makes sense, yes, because it's avoiding the real threat from black, which was capturing the a2 pawn when they castle. However, what did we just say? What problem has white been having the whole time? Lack of development. And this move adds even more to that lack of development, since now, for example, a bishop move would already have all the pieces out and the king castle for black, with the rooks ready to enter the center. However, at this moment, the player with the black pieces came up with a tremendously good move, an excellent and also striking move, because it's one of those moves that really impresses you when you see it. Normally, when you see it in a video, for example, on the internet, you say, wow, that's a very good move. But we must remember that these are 2 players playing in an in-person tournament. And I don't know about you if you play in in-person tournaments or not, but if someone plays a move like this against me, I really have a truly hard time. I start swallowing hard, I start having a rough time. What is happening here? If you want, you can pause the video to try to find the fabulous move. I'm going to say it right now, and while you think about it, I'll take the opportunity to tell you that it's important to mention that we are going to bring, in addition to the new features we just added to the Academy, new content from a Grandmaster. That is to say, we're going to incorporate a course by a Grandmaster completely included in the price, without any extra cost. Everything we add to the Academy without extra cost has a cost. And with that, everything is added. In addition, we have already added, this is already available, the Basic Fundamentals course by WCMU via Murata, okay? It has 12 step-by-step video lessons, especially for all those players who have an ELO of less than 1500 or less than 1300. It will be very useful for them to move directly on to Flavia's professional classes in the Academy. Yes, and also, you have Chessmon 100% included with the 60 courses on openings, middle game, and interactive exercises. Come on, I'm going to leave it for you down here in the description because you can start for €1 or $1, a 7-day trial with everything included. You have nothing to lose, and your chess level is going to improve tremendously. Friends, what is the spectacular move? Precisely here, the black pieces played knight takes f4, executing an excellent knight sacrifice. I'll explain it to you because it's simple to understand when it's explained, but if no one explains it to you, it doesn't seem so simple, right? First of all, it's important to see that taking this knight, that is, accepting the gift, is very dangerous for the white pieces. Why? Because by capturing, the king's line is opened. And look at how the bishop would come in, for example, right? Bishop h4 check. The king would have to move. The best square is f1. However, at this moment, we could already, for example, play f5, kick out this knight, the queen comes in, the bishop comes in, the rooks are going to come in, and this is going to be very dangerous. Decisive advantage for the white pieces. And I don't even need to mention what happens if the king moves to the same file, right? That would be even worse. That is why at this moment, after the knight captures on f4, it's better not to touch that knight. The option that the white pieces tried to play makes sense, right? If the bishop wants to come in, I eliminate the bishop with a check. I force you to recapture. And at this moment, it seems like my problems have gone away a little bit. I'm even going to give you this check, taking advantage of the fact that we have the queen behind defending as well. And after this king g7, well, now I try to exchange queens to get in the way of the king's open file, and when I can, right? I'm going to try to castle. When this queen, for example, moves away. But friends, if the knight sacrifice seems spectacular to you, you're going to be blown away by the sacrifice that the black pieces are about to make. I'll explain it to you because I'm not going to wait any longer, because I'm eager to show it to you. Both rooks are sacrificed, both of them. It starts with rook e8. Obviously, the rook must be captured, right? Why? Because if it's not captured, the queen is lost thanks to this. Once again, relative pin, right? The queen can't move away, so this rook gift must be accepted. But it doesn't end here. Bishop f5, giving away the other rook, and there's nothing better than to accept it. What's the idea? Why have they been given away, friends? First the knight, which wasn't accepted, and then the two rooks, which were both accepted? Because now the white pieces have been left completely uncoordinated. A queen on a8 that isn't doing anything, and on top of that, a bishop on the h7 square that isn't doing anything either. And the black pieces, even though there are only three, queen, bishop, and knight, are enough to deliver checkmate. And I'm going to show you, and that's exactly what the player with the black pieces did in the game. Queen to e4 check, the king escapes to f2, queen to g2 check, the king escapes to e3, the knight comes to d5 delivering check, but no matter how much the king tries to escape, notice how now it's the queen that starts to corner him. Queen to d2, check, the king has to go to c5, queen to e3, check, the king has to go, for example, to c4, and now there are several ways to deliver checkmate. The most elegant one is the following: knight to b6, which in itself is a wonderful move because I'm given check, and I'm going to take the queen if something goes wrong. However, it's not necessary to take the queen because here we are going to deliver checkmate in several ways. White resigned, and I'll explain why. For example, they should go here or here, and let's say both responses would be totally inefficient because the checkmate is simple. Queen to e6 check, the king only has one move to come back to where it was before. The queen would have to come to c4 delivering check. And whether it comes or not, it has to come here and we can deliver checkmate in two different ways. The first would be queen to a4 and the second queen to c5. Both are checkmate. An impressive game, full of lessons, and we can logically see how to take advantage of that lack of development. Friends, I hope you love this video. I 100% recommend joining the Academy. Try it out, friends. It's only €1 or $1. Try it out down below, because the content you have inside, which is constantly evolving, you already know that every week you also get 2 new video classes, it's completely worth it if what you really want is to improve your chess level. I assure you that you will improve it extremely effectively and quickly, and having a good time while doing it too. Coming soon, those of you who are already inside will have it included, a Grandmaster course. And what's more, I haven't mentioned it yet, but you'll also be able to send in your own games, and the Grandmaster, I haven't said who it is yet, is going to analyze them and publish them. For all of you who want to, okay? I hope you loved this video. We'll see each other tomorrow in the next one, Frus. Goodbye. Everything is down here in the description. Take a look at it.